The steps, they were built in 1792. They got the name Whaligoe because whales got washed up dead on the shores. They had a crane on top of the rocks, which is 240 foot. Whenever they got a dead whale, they didn't hunt them, they were just washed up dead. Whenever they got a dead whale, they pulled it up and used it. And that is why the place is called Whaligoe. Because you'll see lots of signs, stacks ago, partly go, hours ago. But Goe just means an inlet. So Whaligoe is inlet of whales. Now there was 365 steps, one for every day of the year. There was until 24 years ago. There's only 337 at the moment. The grass path at the top used to be stepped, but that was all pulled up with vandals. Now, this picture was taken in 1945. That was my grandfather's boat. This was the last boats ever to fish in the harbour. The boat beside my granddad's, William Sinclair, lived in the house just over in the field up there. William's boat was pulled out of the water for the last time in 1970, and that was the final boat that ever fished there. I was great with the old man. Now when you come down the steps onto this grass platform, this is called the bink. When you're standing on the bink, high tide is away down here. You have another 60, 70 foot before you get into the sea, and that's high tide. At the end of the bink, the steps coming down, there's an old winch, or part of an old winch down here. Now the winch does not face the water, it faces the rocks. From the winch they had a rope into the back of the rocks to a pulley. There's chains hanging on the rocks with painted white so folk could see it. From the pulley, the rope came back out into the water. So they pulled the fishing boats onto the shore, back to the first winch. Now there used to be another winch on the platform. Vandals smashed that 9 years ago. And they pulled the fishing boats up the steps onto the bink. This was in the bad weather or for repairing. There's a big stone in the water down here with a big round metal eye on the top. There's a stone on the other side with a big round metal eye. And there's two out further. And this was for tying the boats in the water in the good weather. Only in the bad weather they pulled them onto the bink. The old building, or what's left of it, that was the salt store. The big house at the top, the big courtyard, that was the cooperage where they made the wooden barrels. So they made the barrels for the fish at the top, carried the barrels down, filled them on the bink with a salt herring. Now when you're down on the bink, you'll see 3 metal pins stuck in the ground. There used to be a wooden jetty came out from there into the water. The metal pins were for holding the wooden jetty in place. And the schooners, the big sailing ships, were towed in alongside backwards. And they rolled the barrels out to the schooners for exporting. In 1823, there was nearly 1,000 barrels of herring exported out of there. That's a lot of fish. A lot of the fish was exported to Russia. That's hard to believe, but that's true. There was 20 boats fishing out of there at one time. There was also a big round pot sunk in the ground. It's full of stones. This is called the barking kettle. There's a hole in the wall underneath. They lit a fire and they boiled bark of the oak trees and cow's urine. And they boiled their fishing nets in the pot. And this was to preserve their cotton nets from the salt water. How they got urine from a cow, I don't know. My dad was a farmer. My brother is a farmer. I'm a mechanic, I've got more sense. I chased one of my dad's cows with a bucket. Never got a thing. So if you ever get peed on by a cow, your trousers will last forever. They don't smell nice though, but they'll last forever. And beside the barking kettle, there's a big metal grill. It looks like a big barbecue. A fire under there, a big pot on top for boiling tar. And you'll still see the stones at the side of the building all covered in tar. And that's where they pull the boats onto for tarring and caulking their boats to waterproof them. There's also a long channel in the wall. It looks like a chimney stack. This was built to hold this wooden mast in place. From the mast, they hung their fishing nets across. From the mast, they hung their fishing nets across to the other masts on the outside. You still see holes in the grass where the mast used to be. That's salmon fishing nets in the picture. There's also three little square holes built in the wall. There's 3 little square holes built in the wall, and this was for holding their paraffin lamps so they could work at night. So the herring fishing is only 2 months of the year. The herring's just passing. The steps were fished every day. Now it was the women who carried the fish up the steps on baskets on their back. Halfway down, just past the 3rd corner, on your right hand side, there's fishing nets in the picture drying. Just below the nets there's a flat shelf of stone about this high, and this was specially built for the women to set their baskets on to have a rest. So they weren't too bad, they were allowed 1 rest. Then they had to walk to Wick, 8 miles, carrying their fish to sell. And home in town to cook the dinner. Here, that's not a beard you've got. In those days the women had beards right down to their knees and hairy legs. There's still quite a few in Wick. Not the woman you fall out with. Well, certainly know the ones you want to wake up in the morning with. Now, it was £8 the price to build all the steps, and £54 to build the bink and the building. That picture came off an old glass negative. I've showed that to thousands of people. I've been on the telly 3 times, I've been on the radio, I'm in lots of tour guide books, magazines. I love telling folks the history of our steps.
Thank you.
That gives you an idea of them.